Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Gina. I'm going to do another book review tonight. This one is Elvis and Gladys by Elaine Dundy. Most of you probably will have heard of it. It was published in 1985. It's a very well known book, talked about a lot on books about Elvis, and the general consensus that it's a very good book, been very well written, a lot of information. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what I think of it. Okay, for a start, it starts off with notes to the reader, sort of a preface. She mentions all the people that she spoke to about Elvis and his family when she was there in 1981 in Tupelo and Memphis. She says there's been little documentation about Gladys as a child and adolescent. Now, really, do we really need to know that? I mean, how much do we need to know about Elvis and his family? I know we like to know about Elvis, but that much of his family, Gladys's adolescence? Let me see. It's good. She says, new information providing a far firmer foundation than has been laid before, enabled me to rebuild Elvis's character, and hopefully, as I followed him and Gladys through their lives together, to project a portrait of each of them in far sharper focus and more vivid colours. Well, I've been making notes. To me, this book, it took me months to read. I had to plough through pages and pages and pages of her imagined images of Elvis as a child, with his love of comics, and in particular the Captain Marvel comics. She says, he looks, in fact, this is Captain Marvel, right? He looks, in fact, exactly as Elvis from adolescence to the end of his life strove to make himself look. Really? A 40-year-old man still wanting to look like a hero of a comic book? I mean, I know he said that he was the hero of his comic books when he did the JC speech, but hey, he was talking about when he was a kid, not as a man. Let me see, he read as a kid. Okay, I'll just read you something. I've got a few of the pages marked here, as I usually do. Page 71, bear with me. Okay. Elvis's twin fusion with Freddie, Captain Marvel Jr. was total, and it was from reading his adventures that the young Elvis secretly began to create himself. Now, what would she know about Elvis secretly doing anything as a child? The power of Captain Marvel, symbolised by his ability to fly high over the earth, was twinned with his external powerlessness in the form of his other identity, the poor crippled newsboy, symbolising for Elvis his own crippling by the death of Jesse, whose name is nevertheless Freeman. Millions of other children, of course, were reading this same comic book in bright primary colours at the same time, but Elvis's specific background and temperament made him singularly susceptible to its magic. He must have felt it drawn and written for his eyes only. It was Captain Marvel Jr. who helped mould Elvis's personality, humble and humorous, and to crystallise his desire to save the world and his family. It was Captain Marvel Jr. who sculpted Elvis's authoritative stance, legs exultantly wide apart, the graceful gestures of his hands, palms flat, fingers outstretched, thumbs extended. It was Captain Marvel who styled and eventually coloured Elvis's glistening black hair, side parted with the forelock falling over his brow, the sideburns, the hair growing down his cheek. Excuse me, I thought that was Tony Curtis. Yeah, right, okay. Oh, okay, yeah. One wonders if it was something seen long ago and long submerged that sprang suddenly into Elvis's consciousness in the early 70s. Lightning bolts abound in the panels of the Captain Marvel series, not just on the young hero's chest. What did the lightning bolt mean to the grown-up Elvis? Precisely what it meant to the child. Power. Yeah, okay, right. Okay, moving on page 81. I'll tell you what, talk about a vivid imagination. The best known photograph of Elvis as a child, usually captioned between the ages of 2 and 3, the one most reproduced. It even adorns the cover of one of his albums, and she's talking about Yeah, that one there. Have another look at that. Now, what do you think? A photo that's taken in the middle of the Depression, around about that era, the best known photograph is the one of him dressed in overalls and a small hat standing between his seated parents against what looks like a stark grey cement background. It is an odd photograph for many reasons. First of all, it's a posed photograph. It is without studio backdrop or studio lighting. Secondly, it is only the only photograph of Elvis taken at so early an age indoors. All the other photographs of young Elvis are Kodak snapshots with outdoor settings. Most important is the palpable tension emanating from the figures in the photograph. All three are grim-visaged. Gladys, dark and beautiful, neat and slender, all eyes, all character. Vernon is handsome and terrified. Elvis is pudgy, cupid-lipped and stiff-fingered with strain. Fear and panic leap out of their eyes as all three glance sideways. No one is looking at the birdie, focusing on catastrophe. Something about the way Gladys, her cheek pressed against Elvis's little hat, has extended her arm behind him and is gripping Vernon's shoulder, makes one wonder if this photograph was not actually taken at the police station and at Gladys's insistence that she and Vernon and Elvis have this remembrance of them all to cherish in the heart's month to follow. Lord Jesus Christ, what a bloody imagination. I've got photos of my grandparents and my great-grandparents. Nobody smiled in those days. They were set up, they had to stand still. They had to stand still for ages while the photographer sorted out his flash and his equipment and so on. Nah, sorry mate, I don't get that. All right, the author then continues to write all the things she had been told by the people she interviewed, and then she psychoanalysed every word and action. Page 95, let me see what they've got on page 95. Ah dear. Yeah. As every morning during the school term, Gladys got Elvis out of bed, scrubbed his face, neck and ears with homemade soap, gave him breakfast, put him in clean overalls, and along with Annie Presley and her children, marched him the short distance to school in the morning and a short distance home in the afternoon. Thus began the daily ritual of Gladys walking Elvis to and from school, a ritual she was to observe whenever possible, almost to the end of Elvis's school days. That it was to cause him much embarrassment, annoyance and frustration, not to say anger, he finally insisted she walk behind him and on the other side of the road, hidden in the bushes if possible. Did not prevent him from understanding the motives for her persistence or in the main from being sympathetic. Now I don't believe that, and I cannot. A boy who loved his mother as much as that. I can't imagine Elvis as a child telling his mother, or a teenager telling his mother to walk on the other side of the road and hide in bushes. What a load of crap. Sorry, I don't do that. Like I said, it's just, what have we got here? It's becoming more and more like a work of fiction, graphically describing things she can only have imagined because she wasn't there. Her previous experience as a writer of 3 novels and a play seems to have influenced her writing of this book. Let's go on to what she says about Dixie Locke. Oh, where are we? Okay, page 182. Where are we? Dixie responding to a man. Okay. Pretty and smiling, Dixie was no doubt many other things as well. But one thing she definitely was not. She was not like, if she has to be like anyone, Gladys. To begin with, her child and adolescence had been comparatively untroubled, and to continue listing their dissimilarities, Gladys's nurturing instincts had led her to marry someone younger than her. Wasn't nurturing instincts, or would she just fall in love with somebody younger? Gee whiz. Dixie, in responding to someone 3 years older, Elvis, and 3 years to a teenager who's double that in their eyes, was responding to an older man who would take care of her. But this is all so much psychological music, yeah, right, when really the one she was most like in aspect, age and level-headedness was none other than, get this, lively Mary Batson, Mary Marvel, Captain Marvel's twin sister, who, when not done up in her Marvel gear, wears simple blue school dresses, bobby socks and knee socks, and whose long dark hair was worn like Dixie's, shoulder length, with a short swirled off the forehead lock. Far out. Okay. Then it goes on a bit more. Still the element of Freddie Freeman guarding his Captain Marvel secret, but more because with Dixie, Elvis was content in being plain, ordinary, everyday Elvis Presley truck driver. The pangs of ambition almost subsided when he was with her. So content was he then no longer to be this. Now cop this. Oddball, this joke, this freak in sideburns and crazy stage clothes, who happened also to have a glorious voice and a mission to use it to change his family situation in the world. I don't like that at all, I'm afraid. Okay, moving on. What have we got on page 211? Okay, now, one whole chapter is devoted to Col Parker. And, excuse my language, in which she proceeds to put shit on him for the next 23 pages. Now, whatever you think of someone, you do not write this in a book. Parker early on would have had to face the fact that his appearance was against him. Even in his early 30s, he was gross and round-shouldered with an overflowing pot-belly. His balding head narrowed as it rose like an egg to its peak. His first chin rolled into his second. His mouth seemed to slide all over the place in a fat smile, and his eyes were set too close together. Yet it was more than his physical appearance that would make people instinctively and intuitively suspicious of him. He would also encounter the deep suspicion always aroused in people when confronted with someone who has strenuously invented his own personality. Okay, that's not the end of it. Further on. The Colonel, attired in his informal working clothes, was not the most pleasant of sights. In those days, summer and winter, he favoured a T-shirt under his jacket. Never can there have been a T-shirt on a man so wrinkled and creased in so many different directions, the wrinkles beginning well above his protruding fat man's breasts and continuing down over his vast paunch, and his droopy pants were always unpressed. All his suits were under a tremendous strain at the seams, constraining the armpits, constraining the elbows, buttons strained across his huge circumference, trousers stained over the belly to reach his ankles. I mean, that could be describing Santa Claus, but would anybody talk about Father Christmas like that? No. Sorry, God. All right. Then the next thing that upset me, she gets stuck into Jailhouse. She talks about the movies. She gets stuck right into Jailhouse Rock. She writes a whole chapter on Jailhouse Rock. And listen to this. Page 299. All right. Where are we? Chapter 298. Okay. Jailhouse Rock, within its framework, was a first-rate realistic film except for one thing. It required the audience to get over one enormous hurdle, one suspension of disbelief, namely the basic absurdity that the young man who has killed someone and spent time in a state pen for it can become almost immediately, on his emergence from jail, a sensational rock star who will be given his own show on a major network, who will have his records played on all the radio stations, and who will be welcomed by Hollywood with open arms and groomed for stardom. I mean, really, it's a bloody movie. God, what would she have thought of E.T. and science fiction movies and the movies? Ah, jeez, I tell you what. Okay, and then where have I got here? Page 301. Okay. Oh, yeah. She mentions several times in the book about Elvis's father having been jailed for, whatever it was, some minor thing in the Depression years when Elvis was a kid. So what does it say here? about Jailhouse Rock. Elvis, at 22, found himself reenacting his daddy as a jailbird, reenacting Vernon's experiences at Parchment Jail when he was exactly the same age. A further note for students of numerical coincidence: when Elvis's cellmate is released from jail, he makes a point of saying he served 18 years. When Elvis was making Jailhouse Rock, Vernon had been out of jail for 18 years. There were signs everywhere of Elvis's reluctance to do this film. No. I'm not even going to read that out. I'm not going to read that bit out. Okay. Yeah, there's more. But I will say, my overall impression of this book is one of profound negativity. Nowhere in its pages does it show Elvis as being happy. It doesn't mention the numerous acts of charity and kindness that he did during his lifetime. Obviously, a lot of the events and the people that she writes about are factual. But Elvis fans generally like to read about the positive side of Elvis. His music, his movies, his family and friends, all the good things he did, why people loved him. I'm sorry, and I'm not sorry, I shouldn't even apologise, but I wouldn't recommend this book to an Elvis fan. To somebody who wants to read about how bad it was growing up in the South and the Depression, the war years, fine. But don't read it if you want to know about Elvis. Thanks for watching.